Welcome into this Tuesday edition of Pushing the Pile. Mike Renner, JP Acosta. Today's show, we're going to be rolling through a little Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl recap, some of the biggest risers, and then we're getting to our mock draft, what we would do. Everyone does their predicting what they think will happen. We're too far out for that. Everyone's done it. We want to get in the minds of all 32 GMs. Well, not all 32, because not all 32 have first-round picks, but all the GMs that do have first-round picks, and say how we would approach this draft if we were them. But we'll start with the Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl, which, JP, you were at Senior Bowl. I was at the Shrine Bowl. I was supposed to be at the Senior Bowl, but I sat in the airport for 2 days before saying, screw it, I'm heading back to Cincinnati. We're on to Cincinnati because, dude, I'm actually proud of myself that I managed not to tweet about it. I think I'm the first member of media to sit at the airport for 2 straight days and not tweet about it. But it was crazy because they kept just pushing it back an hour every time. Like, I had a flight and they wouldn't outright cancel it. They would just push it back an hour. And I'd be like, okay, I'm here another hour. And then they push it back an hour. And then 2 straight days of pushing back an hour. And unfortunately, it was my first Senior Bowl that I didn't get to go to since COVID. How was it, though?
It was good. It was cold. It was very cold, but it was good. I shout out to Ryan Wilson, who's also with the First Pick podcast for CBS Sports. I was on this show all week. It was really fun, and I think it was a really cool reflection of what this draft class is. It was very strong on the defensive line, especially a defensive tackle. Not especially great when it came to the quarterbacking aspect, but I did enjoy a lot of the guys that were there, and there were some really cool stories that came out of it.
Yeah, I do think the defensive tackles down in Mobile were some of the stars. We're going to get to, though, our biggest risers. 3 risers apiece. We'll go back and forth. I'll let you kick it off. Who was one of your biggest risers?
So one of my biggest risers from the Senior Bowl is Adame Tucker from Western Michigan, edge. He had 14.5 sacks in his final year at Western Michigan, 19.3% pressure rate. And he came to the Senior Bowl in Mobile, and he stood out immediately when it came to pass rushing for the national team. I think his ability to win around the corner, I think his bend really stood out. And actually, despite being 6'1", about 250 pounds, I think he showed some nastiness in the run game. I was actually a little surprised. So I think he's starting to play himself up the boards. Of course, there's always going to be undersized, small school edge. That's probably not going to get you drafted super early. But I think around like late day 2, early day 3, a guy like Adame Tucker can come in and immediately be a pass rush help for a lot of teams. You immediately think of the Los Angeles Chargers, who just took his defensive coordinator to be their defensive coordinator this year. So I think he's going to find himself a role in the NFL as a designated pass rusher.
Yeah, he's one of those guys we've talked about, the undersized, sub 6'2", sub 6'1" and 3/4, 246, just over 32-inch arms. Like that's not an every down edge in the NFL, but those guys are becoming more and more of a weapon in certain schemes and unique career arc. The guy spent 3 years at Houston, played fewer than 200 snaps over there, and then transfers to Western Michigan and has, like you said, double-digit sacks. And I was impressed. I had a buddy actually texting me about him. He's like, have you watched this guy, Adame Tucker? Because he was watching the Senior Bowl. And I was like, I actually hadn't headed to the Senior Bowl, and now I have. And yeah, he knows how to attack off the edge. So definitely one of the bigger risers there. I'll start with mine. The guy who, when I went back and watched, had some of the best coverage tape I've ever seen from a linebacker at the Senior Bowl, and it was Kyle Lewis, Pittsburgh linebacker. He reminds me a lot of Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah coming out of Notre Dame, just for 2 reasons. One is the build. He's short, so sub 6 foot, 5'11", 3/4. He has 32-inch arms, which for linebackers, that's like over 75th percentile. That's long arms for a linebacker. That's kind of what you want. At that position, you can play with leverage, but you also have a large wingspan to affect outside of your frame. And then you watched him in coverage against running backs there, and I mean, just blanketed. I know Mel Kiper has him ranked as a safety because he played overhang at Pittsburgh, and that's the other part of the Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah comp, is that's the role he played when he was at Notre Dame. I still think he's a linebacker, though. I just think he is a awesome coverage linebacker that you're going to have to give up something against the run, but I am very impressed with what he can do in a man-heavy scheme or in a man-match sort of scheme. This guy is a weapon in coverage.
His day 3 of tape at the Senior Bowl is one of the best linebacker tapes from the Senior Bowl I think I've ever seen when it came to coverage. And he was blanketing every route. I think there was a stretch of practice where they were doing team, and he's getting under a lot of digs over the middle of the field. He's punching balls out. I think he's doing such a good job of finding his way around the football. And like you said, he's undersized, but I do think that his ability to play with range and his ability to affect the passing game is going to be helpful for somebody in the NFL. I think if you can get him to a defense, it's going to keep him clean. If you have just space eaters up front, you can have him sort of be that sort of run and chase will linebacker where you don't really want to ask him to like go and like hit like 330 pound guards. It's not going to be his game. But if he can run and chase and play well in coverage, I think you can find a role for him. I actually was talking with one of my friends at the Senior Bowl, and I was like, the Raiders should draft Kyle Lewis because they just need that help over the middle of the field, especially in pass coverage situations. It's basically like having Jamal Adams at this point. So I think Kyle Lewis is really, really good in coverage, and that's going to stand out, especially when you watch his tape.
Yeah, strong linebacker class. I would bet he is somewhere in the top 100 picks after that tape.
My next guy, I'm going way down the board here. I'm going to John Carroll and wide receiver Tyron Montgomery. This was a guy, he showed up on day one, and everybody was like, who is this dude? He had one of the best catches of the week. He went up over San Diego State's Chris Johnson for a touchdown catch. But his story is so impressive. He was a walk-on the basketball team at LSU. Decides to leave. Pandemic happens. He transfers to Nicholls State to play football. And then he transfers from Nicholls State to John Carroll and immediately becomes an incredible Division III receiver. And what stands out about him is that basketball player aspect, despite being 5'11", 190. He can go up and make contested catches. That's something that I was really impressed by because he's not a big receiver. When you think about former basketball player playing football, you're thinking like 6'4", 6'5". No, he is a point guard. And I think that his ability to go and be explosive above the rim when it comes to playing receiver, I think is going to really stand out. But also his ability to be shifty. I think his ability to create separation immediately, that stands out when it comes to basketball, that former basketball player. There's still some refinement that needs to happen when it comes to running his route. So I'm not going to say he's like getting drafted day 2, but I do think that he's going to be a really nice value add for somebody who wants to just see what happens with him.
Yeah. I mean, when you watched him, I came away with like the exact same diagnosis that he's not really crisp. Like you see a loose route runner, but then you also see physical capability that's unique, right? And given his backstory, that's someone that's like the guy you want to buy in on day 3, right? It is the guy who, one of the routes you ran that's like a comeback on the outside, you want to see 2 things on like a deep comeback. You want to see guy stop quickly, and you want to see his hips flip quickly. You want to see those 2 things happen. If you can do those 2 things very well, you can get open at the NFL level. Not a lot of guys can. He did both. And now, again, his footwork and his consistency route to route looks like a basketball player, but that's something that you can work with, is that sort of innate physical attribute. So yeah, I was impressed with him too, even if like you go watch every single route isn't him dominating. It's the high end reps that are like, okay, that we can work with. My next guy, I'm going to the quarterback position. I thought Garrett Nussmeier in a class that after Fernando Mendoza from Indiana, I don't know why I said from Indiana, everyone knows that at this point, Ty Simpson from Alabama, that there's not really a quarterback 3. I've said there's probably not going to be another guy drafted in the top 100 in this quarterback class. Nussmeier, I thought, made it a conversation. And now it's hard to look good in any of those situations. You have new receivers, new scheme, whatever. But I thought his ability to move in the pocket, his ability to protect the football, his accuracy was all just better than everyone else. And we talked about how it's a weak quarterback class here at Senior Bowl, just like a weak class in general. But he at least rebounded from getting benched, was not fully healthy this past season. He at least looked like the guy who a lot of people hoped we'd see heading into the season. So if you're looking for any guy who can even just hold his head above water at the NFL level outside of those top 2, I think I feel most comfortable with Nussmeier at this point. I would bet that he comes off the board at quarterback 3 after that performance.
I actually thought his game tape was better than his practice tape. I didn't think he was that impressive during the week of practice, but I think when the game came on, you could tell the ball placement, the accuracy, that's what stood out. And I think for Nussmeier, having that game tape is super important because, like you said, there were moments in this season where he was playing hurt, he got benched. There's a lot happened at LSU that we can either say, like, we can comfortably say was not supposed to happen this year. But I think with Nussmeier, the biggest thing is, can his body consistently hold up? You know, he's another one of those guys where I sometimes say, like, he tries to write checks that his body can't cash, or like his mind knows where he wants to go with the ball, but his body just won't let him go there sometimes. And of course, the injuries have also become a really big issue. So can his body hold up consistently? I do think that maybe he might max out as sort of like a spot starter, but I think if you're going to be a spot starter in the NFL, you have to know how you win. And I think Nussmeier knows how he wins.
Yeah, I just think he can be a capable backup for a while.
Yeah.
It's just like a guy who you, again, won't look out of place when he's in there, won't go above and beyond. I don't think he's ever going to be a franchise quarterback, but that's still, for a lot of teams, you know, your Mac Joneses of the world have some value.
My last guy that I'm going to highlight, I was going back and forth between a lot of guys from the Senior Bowl. I'm going to go with wide receiver Kevin Coleman Jr. from Missouri. And he measured in small, 5'11", I think maybe 174. Like he's not a big receiver, but his ability to create separation downfield and just create separation at every level was super impressive this week. I think when you watch him play at Missouri, they were giving him a lot of hospital balls. Like his fearlessness really stands out. And that's really impressive for a guy who isn't the biggest receiver. He can create catch windows with his arms and his ability to create separation over the middle of the field and his feel for zone coverage. He's going to immediately become like, he's going to be on an NFL roster. I don't think he's going to be a day 2 guy. I think maybe like early day 3, because again, there's just the size is going to be a big issue. But I do think his ability this week to be a consistent hands catcher. He had a nice wheel route where he showed late hands I was really impressed with. He also returned kicks for the American team during the Senior Bowl this week. So I think providing his value as a slot only, I think he's going to be a slot only in the NFL. But doing that stuff, the late separation, the verticality, that's going to help him find a consistent role in the NFL offense.
He is this year's version of Tank Dell of, gosh, why am I blanking on the Bucs wide receiver from Oregon? Tez Johnson. He is that type of wide receiver where I think the more I've scouted, the longer I've been in this business, the more I've realized that the weight column doesn't necessarily, it's not necessarily a proxy for how strong you play. You got to watch a guy to figure out how strong they play. And when you watch Coleman at 174, he routinely does not get, he gets through arms. You know, he does not get hampered by that. And that's how I felt about Tez Johnson. That's how I felt about Tank Dell. But what you do worry about when a guy is 174, and what I have also learned about weight, is that you're much more susceptible to injury when you're that small. And so that's just one thing that you can't really overcome, is that you do worry about the injury risk. You obviously also worry about that he is a 4-schooler at this point. 4 schools in 4 years, always going to be like, why couldn't he stick around anywhere for more longer than a year? But he is talented, man. The guy can get open. I'm intrigued by how the NFL is going to view him, because obviously Texans like Tank Dell. He was awesome when he was healthy. Was 3rd rounder. NFL didn't quite like Tez Johnson, 7th rounder, but obviously he's outplayed that since.
Another guy I would throw out name-wise for Kevin Coleman Jr., I think he's a little bigger, but Parker Washington was drafted in the 6th round by the Jaguars, and it's sort of a slot only, but his ability to create separation late in downs for the Jaguars, he has become their man coverage beater, and I think that's something that Kevin Coleman can do at the NFL level. So it's just about finding the right team for him that sort of insulates him so you don't have to have him playing on the outside all the time.
Yep. All right. Last guy from the Senior Bowl, Malachi Fields. Notre Dame wide receiver. To me, going back through the tape of all the wideouts, it was not even close. I think he was head and shoulders the best guy there. 6'4", 218, surprisingly under 9-inch hands, which when you watch him catch the football, He had some insane catches this year at Notre Dame. I would not have guessed that. But what I was impressed with was his second gear. He was able to stack corners consistently in the one-on-ones, in the practice realm. And I think his ability to attack the football in the air at that size is just exactly what you want in a big body wide receiver. So those two things, that ability to accelerate, the ability to attack the football, I would bet after this, he's a top 50 pick. I think he's your version of, I feel like every year there's a guy who goes top of the second round in this mold. You know, your Keon Coleman, your T. Higgins, your Michael Pittman, you're like big bodied, possession-ish type of wide receiver. I think that's going to be Malachi Fields this year.
Big, tall. I wouldn't say big, tall, fast, but big and tall. That's what Malachi Fields is. He had one of the best catches of the week. Taylor Green threw him a corner post that kind of was not a great throw by Taylor Green, but he put it in the area code, and Fields made a diving catch to go get the ball. The biggest thing that stood out to me was his ability to throw guys like by him. I think for a lot of bigger receivers to create separation, you got to be a little bit of a bully ball. You got to play some bully ball. And Malachi Fields knows that he can just throw guys by him to create separation. It's the legal illegal push off. I think a lot of receivers in the NFL have perfected the ref don't see it push off, and Malachi Fields has done that did that really high level at Senior Bowl. So I still wonder a little bit about the verticality, some of the explosiveness, and if he can truly like create that explosiveness downfield at the NFL level. But when you're that big and that fluid of a mover, that's gonna get you drafted.
All right. A few guys I want to shout out at Shrine. Emil Wagner, Notre Dame offensive tackle, not to keep going to Notre Dame guys, but like he was great there, not only on the right side, but the left side where he didn't play at Notre Dame. I was talking to two of the other guys that were on the cross-check staff there with me that did like, you know, should we invite them or not sort of decisions for the Shrine Bowl. And they said, one of them said that he thinks Wagner has a good chance to be the top drafted guy who was at the Shrine Bowl. So good week there for him. Caleb Proctor from Southeastern Louisiana, the most athletic defensive tackle that was there, maybe the most athletic defensive tackle in this draft class. The guy is twitchy, know the name, probably not going to get into the top 100 because he's only 275, but a nice, intriguing day 3 pass rusher. And then Ethan Burke from Texas, just kind of an all-around solid defensive end. I thought versus the run as a pass rusher, just consistent all week long. Those 3 guys made themselves some money. We didn't prep this, but did you have anyone you were disappointed at the Senior Bowl that you like wanted more from, that we don't have to harp on them, but just that didn't quite show up?
I was kind of expecting a little bit more from the tight ends. I was hoping Sam Roush would catch the ball a little bit better. He was impressive. He's an impressive mover. We got a couple of bad drops. I was sort of hoping that Jacoby Lane could make himself some money this week.
That was my big one. That was my biggest one.
It just never really happened. Mm-hmm. And then some of the corners for the American team, you know, you sort of think about the big names like Igbinosun from Ohio State, Malik Muhammad from Texas. Those are Malik Muhammad's like 5'11", 183, but Igbinosun is another like big, physical, long corner. He got flagged a lot for grabbing and holding and pass interference, which is something that's just going to follow him when he goes to the NFL level. I was hoping that he play a little bit cleaner, but yeah, those are guys that sort of like you were hoping for a little bit more this week.
Yeah, I think Lane was my biggest one where I was just like, he did not get open consistently. And I had hoped that, you know, in a setting like that where you can really, you got leeway to do whatever you want in those one-on-ones. You could take a little longer if you need to. Still did not benefit him. So, all right, we're going to take a break. After that, we got mock draft. What we would do, picks 1 through 32, coming up next.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
All right, JP, I'm giving you the number 1 overall pick.
I mean, what I would do is pretty easy. I'd take Fernando Mendoza. That's the first thing you're doing if you're the Raiders. You have the golden ticket for the quarterback, and Mendoza, I feel like he's going to be a subject of a little bit of overthink in this draft process because this quarterback class is seen as a little bit weaker. But I do think Mendoza stacks up really well with the other number 1 picks recently. I think when it comes to Cam Ward versus Mendoza, I actually like Mendoza's ability as a post-snap processor, his ability to throw the ball downfield with touch, with accuracy. I don't think he's going to wow you like outside the pocket. He's not going to be that creative of a thrower, but when it comes to precision from the pocket and processing from the pocket, Fernando Mendoza has got all the tools.
Yeah, I love the fit of him and Clint Kubiak. I think it's going to be easily the most excited I'd be as a Raiders fan in, gosh, going to be almost a decade at this point. Was it 2017 was the last time they were a real threat before Derek Carr got hurt? They are heading the right direction with this pick. All right, number 2, Jets. Gosh, I have to go Ruben Bain. To me, eval-wise, he is just, I have him that clear of the rest of the class in terms of how good he is, and then the positional value. Obviously, I have similar grades in guys like Jeremiah Love, Caleb Downs, but they're running backs and they're safeties. You have to, when you have a top 5 pick, you pretty much have to use it on one of the 3 to 4 most valuable positions, or else you're basically just signing a free agent. You know how much you have to pay those guys. Now, you draft a running back, top 5, you're paying them almost as much as you're paying, James Cook in free agency. So why not say that you can go get James Cook, but it just does not make sense from a dollars and cents perspective when you are working with the same amount of money as everyone else. Everyone else has the same cap dollars. So you have to use them more efficiently. And you use them more efficiently by paying a top tier defensive end $20 million below what he would get in the open market. That's why I'm going Ruben Bain.
So I'm curious about the fit with Bain on the Jets because they have McDonald, because they have Jermaine Johnson there already. But they kind of offered both guys at the trade deadline and nobody bit. Yeah. So it feels like either one of those guys could end up being on their way out. But Bain's just, I think he's the most refined hand user in this class among the edge prospects. And I think that he's just going to be a consistent player at the NFL level. He might not be a monster like he is at college level, but I do think he's going to be a very quality player for a long time.
And I'll say this, get Will McDonald all the way off the field on rundowns. Get him off the field. Get third downs only. That guy he's not a run defender. We can just call it what it is. So that's not stopping me from drafting Ruben Bain. I'll just say that.
So I have the Cardinals pick here because Mike LaFleur is their new head coach. And what Mike LaFleur did for the Rams offense was he helped transition them from being such a wide zone-based offense to being more gap scheme, more duo, more counter. And you think about where the Rams offense is at its best is when they have Kevin Dotson on the field. I'm going to take Francis Magnoa, the third overall pick. And I think he is a very fascinating prospect. I think he has earned the right to start out as a tackle at the NFL level. I do think he could be a fantastic guard. Like, I think you could have like an all-pro guard on your hands with Magnoa, but with the Cardinals needing help at guard and tackle, you can play him wherever. And I just think his consistency as a pass protector, and I just think the physicality and the ability to win on duo blocks, getting upfield, and getting vertical and getting the linebackers, I think that's something that Francis Magnoa does really well. And I think you're immediately getting your version of Kevin Dotson for the Cardinals offense.
Yeah. Jonah Williams ain't it. He's not your long-term answer at right tackle. Maui Noah, I do have questions about can he stick at right tackle, but I do not have questions about if he's going to be a good offensive lineman in the NFL. It's just, in my head, I'm coming at guard, but like you said, you're probably getting a Pro Bowl guard. And for a team in Arizona that, you're not going to find your quarterback at number 3, give them the best situation. I'm not going to argue too much with Francis Maui Noah, especially again, if you want movement. I have Fano ranked higher. I think Fano's a safer pick, but Fano is decidedly a zone offensive lineman. Francis Maui Noah is your gap scheme offensive lineman. So 2 different sides of the coin there at O-line. All right, Tennessee Titans. Gosh, I got to go. I think this guy is potentially special at his position. The only thing stopping him from being in this conversation is injury. And I'll take the risk. I'll take the risk on finding someone special. And I'm going Jordan Tyson to the Tennessee Titans. There's
okay.
I watch his tape and I see a guy that gets open so far and away better than anyone else in this draft class. He's got great size, not great size, but like he has good size for the position, 6'2", 200 pounds. You're not going to complain about that. I thought his hands were so much better this year. Playing through contact and like at the catch point, still a question mark. The injuries obviously concern 3 straight years of missed time, but Cam Ward just needs someone to get open. And if I'm looking at this draft class, and yeah, you could maybe find one on day 2, and maybe you'll draft one also on day 2, considering how big of a need it is. Jordan Tyson, I know, is getting open.
He sort of reminds me, if you're looking for a comp, I think it's his brother, Jalen Tyson, who plays guard for the Cavaliers. He moves like a basketball player on the field. And even when you look at how he sets up his routes, he is such a, I'm going to get square. So when I'm saying when I mean I'm going to get square is both feet are parallel to each other after he gets off the line of scrimmage. And I think he does such a good job of setting up off coverage. I do think he struggles a little bit when it comes to press and that physicality. Yeah. So that's going to be a little bit of an issue for him. But when you just think about what the Titans need at receiver, it's that in-between game. Like they have nobody that can consistently get open in the 10 to 15 yard range. And I think Jordan Tyson can do that.
Yes, that's 100% how I feel.
So, 5th overall pick. I'm going to go with one of my guys in this class. Give me Mekhi Lemon here. I freaking love Mekhi Lemon. I will stand on the table for this guy every single day of the week. He's 5'11", maybe 190, but it doesn't show up when you watch him play. He's a crisp route runner, and his ability to go up and get the ball. And I think that's what really stands out. He plays bigger than his size. We talked about with like Tyron Montgomery at the Senior Bowl, his ability to go up and get the ball and be really good at the catch point for a guy that's 5'11", 190. Mekhi Lemon does that same thing, and I think he's such a crisp route runner when it comes to manipulation of receivers. It's going to create such a fun offense with he and Malik Neighbors. Wan'Dale Robinson is a free agent, so you can move Lemon inside and out. But I freaking love Mekhi Lemon. I'm going to be a guy that I'm going to stand on the table for him every single day of the week.
Oh, yes. I love this pick. Now, this does mean, though, I'm guessing that we're not re-signing Wan'Dale Robinson?
No.
Okay. I think he's no shade of Wan'Dale Robinson. I think Mekhi Lemon's considerably better and more reliable sort of wide receiver. I think that is a great third chess piece to that receiving core to just give you. I mean, that's a dynamic receiving core if you add him to the mix. All right. I'm on Cleveland Browns, pick number 6. Oh, man, this one's tough because I'm really stressing because I want to give them a wide receiver, right? I want to give them Carnell Tate. I like his tape. I think he'd be what they need at the receiver position. But I look at this offensive line and I am in awe of how bad it is. And I just want to give them someone who's capable, right? And I think Spencer Fano is a tremendous offensive line prospect. I think, to me, he's the safest offensive line prospect in this draft class. I'm a lean Fano. I'm going to go Spencer Fano here at pick number 6. I think he's maybe has to be a guard at the next level. He will have shorter arms, sub 33 inches. He measured in last spring, but he's so athletic. He plays such great balance. One of the best outside zone blocking offensive linemen I've scouted in 11 years of doing this. So because of all that, give me Spencer Fano.
I love Spencer Fano. I think that he is, while you have to figure out what he's going to do on the field, I think the athleticism, I think the zone blocking scheme would be really good for him. And I think with Todd Monken coming to Cleveland and being sort of that outside zone based offense that he's bringing from Baltimore, I think he'd be a really good fit at guard. I don't really think he can survive a tackle, but I do wonder, I do wonder if this is the pick where we see one of the fast rising tackles go a lot higher than we think. I'm thinking about like a guy like Monroe Freeling from Georgia, or maybe like, I think it'd be really high, but I think Max Iheanacho from Arizona State. Like, do we see one of those guys continue to make the climb? Because, I mean, It's going to be tough for Fano to find that consistent spot, whether he plays guard or tackle. I think he'd be an awesome guard, but you're getting on base with Fano on your offense.
Yeah. And they have, I believe, both Teller and Bitonio heading into free agency this offseason. So even if it does end up being guard, I don't think you're going to complain too much about him at 6.
So, number 7, Washington Commanders. New defensive coordinator, Durante Jones, comes from the Minnesota Vikings. I think this makes this one easy. I'm going Arvell Reese. When it comes to how the Vikings use their linebackers, when you think about what Eric Wilson did for the Vikings this season when it comes to playing on the edge, playing off the ball, Andrew Van Ginkel has become a perennial Pro Bowler for Minnesota just by batting down screen passes and being sort of a versatile chip when it comes to rushing the passer and dropping in the coverage. I think Arvell Reese can do that same thing. I have him ranked as an edge, although I'm still like fighting between whether edge or linebacker. I just call him a football player. You play him wherever you need to in the front 7, and he's going to go get it done. He is a rare mover going downhill, and the physicality in his hands really stands out. So I would go Arvell Reese here and just make your defense's life so much easier.
Yeah, Reese to the Commanders if he's there. Big if at this point, but it feels like one of the easiest fits in this draft class if he should be there. All right, Saints. No, I'm not drafting a running back in the top 10. I know Jeremiah Love to Saints feels like it's going to happen. It's like fated to happen in real life. But give me Carnell Tate here. After you traded away Rashid Shaheed, there's no one else in the receiving corps besides Chris Olave. You got nobody. And so I think he's actually a very good fit for Kellen Moore's offense too. And that verticality is going to play. Now you got kind of 2 vertical-ish based receivers, but Chuck was throwing nice vertical balls on the outside too. His go ball looked good as a rookie, one of his bigger strengths. So give me Carnell Tate to go haul those in.
His constant improvement at Ohio State is such a feather in his cap when it comes to his draft stock. I think he got a lot better this year. I think he showed a lot more nuance as a route runner. I think the movement skills, like he is one of those guys. When we talk about the top 3 receivers in this draft class, all of them are special movers at the position, and they all do it in different ways. I think Carnell Tate just has this easy like nitro boost where you can go and be explosive. So if you're really going to lean into the deep ball with Tyler Shuck, go get him 2 guys that can go get it. I know you said that you weren't drafting a running back in the top 10. However, if you're the Kansas City Chiefs, I kind of feel like it'd be kind of fun to put Jeremiah Love in this offense. And I'm going to take Jeremiah Love here. The biggest reason is because this Chiefs running back room has no juice. Mm-hmm. They have no explosiveness. And when you watch the run game, I actually thought the run game was trying to do some really nice stuff with the offensive line. They had the offensive line to be a very good run game. The running backs just don't have enough explosiveness to turn those 3 to 4 yard gains into 8 and 9. And I think Jeremiah Love offers a lot as a runner and receiver. You can still keep your guys like Kareem Hunt or Pacheco to sort of take hits off of him. But this offense needs explosiveness. And I think with the top 3 receivers gone, and I sort of think that you look at guys like David Bailey. I don't think Bailey's a very good fit for what Spags wants to be on defense. I'm curious what happens with Leo Chenal in free agency. Maybe this is a spot for a guy like Sonny Styles, but I'm curious how they go about addressing the defense. But right now, I'm just going to go with the sure thing in Jeremiah Love.
This is not a Clyde Edwards-Hilaire-esque situation, right? This is a different cat in Jeremiah Love. You know you're getting dynamism at the very least. With Clyde Edwards-Hilaire, he ran a 4.6 coming out. This was that pick was always kind of like, but this one, it immediately transforms your running game. My only pushback would be you're getting expensive as a roster. And kind of my justification for why I wouldn't draft a running back in the top 5, I think still holds here for a team like Kansas City, where you need to start finding cap edges. You need to start finding places where you're really underpaying guys instead of paying top dollar for Chris Jones's, Patrick Mahomes's, George Karlaftis's, right? So you need to find those edges. And draft Jeremiah Love here. Doesn't necessarily do it, but it does transform their offense. So I can really see both sides of the coin here for a guy like him. All right, Cincinnati Bengals. See, I love the idea of Jermod McCoy here because I think he's perfect corner for what they need. I think that would really make this secondary formidable at minimum in Al Golden's defense. But I got to just go Caleb Downs. I have to draft safe. Jermod McCoy, if he played all season and was healthy and looked better than he did as a sophomore, it's a no-brainer to me for them. But Caleb Downs he's just good at everything. And safeties like that in today's NFL, we just see it around the league. They are floor raisers for your defense. Everyone's looking for them. Caleb Downs is one of them. For Cincinnati Bengals, you can't argue with it in a nice, safe double. That could even be a triple in your defense.
He's such a football smart player. Like his understanding of spacing and positioning on a field. And that's something that you need to have as a safety, the ability to eliminate space as efficiently as possible. And he does that at such a high level. I actually think he could be a really good nickel too, if you want him to play around the ball. But that's sort of the thing that you get when you draft Caleb Downs. You can play him at safety and he can be good. You can play him at nickel and I think he could be good. So you just get a guy, like you said, that's going to raise the floor of your defense. And they need some consistency on the back end. They don't have any consistency outside of DJ Turner. So you think about getting a guy like Caleb Downs and you can immediately just get consistent there.
All right, that's the top 10. We're going to take a quick break after that, 11 through 20.
This isn't just combat. It's cinema. The new home of UFC, Paramount Plus.
All right. 11th overall pick, Miami Dolphins, new head coach Jeff Hafley. I'm going to go Jermod McCoy here because I just think they need warm bodies at corner, honestly. And I think Jermod McCoy, if he gets back to what he showed on his sophomore tape, didn't play at all at Tennessee this season due to injury. If he comes back and he's his sophomore version of what he was, this is a home run pick. This could be one of the best picks in this draft. And I think the way that Jeff Hafley plays his corners, a lot of aggressive cover two, a lot of quarter half, Jermod McCoy's eyes will be such a good use in that defense.
Yeah, I thought his sophomore tape was right up there with the guys like Patrick Surtain. Like I thought it was special. I think I had him as top 5 player heading into the year. Obviously, we need to see testing. I think I'm not going to draft him here if he doesn't work out all spring. But if he comes and works out, and I think he's going to run into low 4.4s, low or high 4.3s. I mean, he looked like a guy who was going to test very, very well based off of what I saw from him. If he does that, I'd still draft him here. I'd for sure still draft him here. All right, number 12, Dallas Cowboys. This may sound crazy because they have a logjam at this position, but I'm fairly certain Kenny Clark's not going to be there any longer. And the highest guy on my board right now is none other than Peter Woods. And I'm taking Peter Woods for the Dallas Cowboys. Just give me who's going to complain about 3 awesome defensive tackles in Quinn Williams, Osa Odigizua, and Peter Woods. I'm not. For Dallas fans won't, especially after last year, right? So I just think the talent that we saw from him early on in his career, and I love early career production in the trenches specifically because it speaks to innate talent. Guys shouldn't be dominating as freshmen and sophomores the way Peter Woods did at defensive tackle because everyone you're facing is older than you. Everyone you're facing is 2 or 3 years older than you. They have that inbuilt strength advantage. So if you can win when you are not, the strongest guy in the block, I still buy into what you can be. So junior tape, we're going to have to talk about it. It's not good. He's going to have to answer questions about that in every interview, but I still believe in what he can do physically at the next level.
And I think with Peter Woods, the biggest couple things to me is, one, you have to find a defense that's going to motivate him to play well, to get that 2024 guy back out of him, because 2025, it just looked like he sort of didn't want to play. And there will have to be answers to questions about that for Peter Woods. I think he's a little bit of a weird build as a defensive tackle. He's a little bit more stocky than like truly like lengthwise.
He's kind of built like Kenny Clark, honestly.
Yeah, and I think when you look at what Christian Parker, new defense coordinator, comes from in Philadelphia, they had hockey waves of defensive tackles being able to rotate in. So if you're able to take Osa Odighizuwa off the field for a couple snaps, get a breather, and put Peter Woods on the field, it makes a lot of sense. So I like this pick. It's something that I hadn't really thought about beforehand, but you can never have too many defensive tackles.
Exactly. I mean, do you think Seattle or New England are complaining about their defensive tackle rotations? I don't think so.
All right. 13th overall pick, Los Angeles Rams. They historically do not draft this position, but this is what I would do if I were the Rams GM. Give me Sonny Styles. Let's turn this middle of the field coverage into one of our biggest strengths. This Rams linebacker group is always going to be the reason why they don't get to where they want to be, because they just don't invest there. They don't invest at linebacker or safety or corner. And I do like the idea of Mansour Delane here in this defense, but Sonny Styles is one of the best players. I think he might be the best player in this draft class, even better than Arvell Reese, just when it comes to the physicality, the range as a linebacker. He is immediately going to help that defense so much.
Yeah, I think Sonny Styles is likely going to be a top 10 pick in this draft class after he tests, because he could run the 4.3s. I mean, his frame is absurd. There's just not a lot of holes to poke in his game for a Rams team where, you have some obvious reasons why you didn't go to the Super Bowl this year. It wouldn't surprise me if they use this draft to plug those obvious reasons, right? And don't just say, don't take a forward-thinking approach. Take a very short-term approach, because you don't know how much longer Matt Stafford has. All right, Baltimore Ravens. I'm going to go Vega Ioane, the Penn State.
Ooh.
His tape, I think, is just so clean. And you're the Baltimore Ravens. You had, similar to kind of what I just said about the Rams, you had an obvious weakness. You had one of the most glaringly obvious weaknesses of any team offensively was your guard position. Guard position was a disaster. To me, he's easily the most NFL-ready guard, and just such clean tape. Yeah, you would love a pass rusher. Maybe David Bailey here could make an impact for you right away. But I think Ioane, at least, you need Lamar Jackson to stay healthy. You need him to take as few hits possible. This helps that.
So I actually kind of like it. And I think the biggest reason that I like it is because you just immediately get better at those guard spots. He's a little bit of a weird fit with Declan Doyle coming from Chicago to be the offensive coordinator. That was a little bit more outside zone. The Bears got good when they started running a lot more outside zone, and Vega Ioane is a little bit more of a gap scheme puller type of player. I'm curious if he can fit that movement style, but if he does and they think he got it, like, that's an awesome pick. I actually like this as more of a cleaner fit than a guy like David Bailey, just because you already have an undersized pass rusher who doesn't really defend the run in Mike Green. And you already had struggles defending the run. So I'm a little iffy on that for Baltimore. Tampa Bay here is, again, another very fascinating spot. You could really go a lot of different places. I'm going to go Keldrick Falk from Auburn, who is one of a guy that I'm a lot higher on than most people. I just think that he's going to be a good player at the NFL level. He's the youngest player in this draft, already one of the best run defenders in this draft class, with the length, the ability to use his length at a high level as a run defender. His snap timing is horrendous, but I do think part of that is because he played in the tight front at Auburn when he was playing the 4-eye, and it's a little bit of the same discussion we had surrounding Mykel Williams coming out of Georgia. And I think Mykel Williams, I don't think the Niners are regretting drafting him, because he was such a hammer in the run game, and I thought that you were able to move him inside and be versatile with him. I do wonder if if he's already 6'6", 285 as a 20-year-old, do you try and put 15 more pounds on him and make him a defensive tackle? I think that'd be a really fun thing to do. But with that, putting him with Todd Bowles, you immediately answer a lot of problems up front.
Yeah, that's a pick where it's just like, hey, we need as many bodies as possible on this defensive line. I don't know if you can rely on Kalijah Cansey at this point, given his injury history. It seems like every year we're talking about him being sidelined, and he could be more of your early down 3-tech to Kalijah Cansey's later down. That there's always spots for defensive linemen like Keldrick Falk and scheme. That's the beauty of guys like that.
Let's swap Kalijah Cansey and Keldrick Falk's positions and have Kalijah Cansey as your edge
on the edge.
Falk as a defensive tackle. If you just take 15 pounds from Kalijah Cansey and put it on Keldrick Falk, you immediately have solved the defense.
All right, Jets back on the clock. Man, I want to give them a wideout. I think I would love putting a third guy in the receiving core, but I think it can wait. At this point, no one at pick 16 is so good that I'm going to have to go to bat for them. So I'm going to go with one of my guys in this draft class, who I'm probably a little higher on than most, but I'm going Avion Terrell.
Yeah.
Corner. I think he'll be either can play the slot there or the outside. Your corner group is really just Azaria Thomas, Jarvis Brownlee. I don't want Brandon Stevens out there anymore. Sorry, Brandon. So find a way to get those three guys in the football field. Avion Terrell, I just think he's going to be a damn good corner at the next level.
I can guarantee you Aaron Glenn loves Avion Terrell.
Yeah.
That is the type of player that he loves. He's always going to find himself around the ball. He's physical through the catch point. And again, that stands out a lot because he is not a big corner. He's about 5'11", but his ability to play bigger through contact, and I think his ability to cause problems. He forced 5 fumbles last season. That's going to play. So I want him on my defense. I think that makes a lot of sense, especially like you said, sorry to Brandon Stevens, kind of want to get him off the field. And this is sort of the beginning of the youth movement for New York. So get Azaria Thomas on the field and just see what you got. 17. This is about where I'd be comfortable drafting David Bailey right here to the Detroit Lions. I'm not comfortable with taking him top 10. Honestly, I think he's a designated pass rusher, but I also wonder a little bit about if he's actually bendy or is he's just fast, because I do think he's a little bit stiff at the top of his pass rushes, but he is such a vertically explosive guy that it makes a lot of sense to put him in Detroit's defense alongside Aiden Hutchinson and alongside a guy like Marcus Davenport, who can sort of take snaps and take hits off of them in the run game. So I go David Bailey here. They need to turn up their pass rush. So I think Bailey coming in as sort of your designated pass rusher early would be a really nice help and sort of free up some eyes off of Aiden Hutchinson.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you that this is about where it starts to make sense for me. Maybe 15 to the Bucks, guess depending on who's on the board there, but this is just the range I see him in, and everything you said, I am in complete agreement with. So we see him similarly. All right, Vikings at 18. I'm gonna go Mansour Delane, the top just pure man corner in this class, going to Brian Flores defense. Where you definitely have a need at corner. Let's do it. I don't think this one's really too hard. This one is given where the boards fall, and I think this one's pretty easy.
This one we are manifesting. We're manifesting Mansour Delane to the Vikings. Like you said, best man corner in the class. I think his reaction time and his hips being such a fluid player, I think it makes so much sense in this defense, and you just immediately get better.
Yeah, part of man coverage that, you need traits to play it, but then you also need to process quickly to play man coverage, because a lot of the sort of unspoken about cornerback player, like what separates good from great is how quickly you react, truthfully. I mean, it's just how quickly are you seeing a stem and knowing where that stem's going to take a wide receiver. The great ones are basically knowing where you're going before you go there. You watch Mansour Delane's tape and it's like he sees wide receivers routes before they happen.
19, this is a tough spot for the Panthers to be in. I would not rule out them drafting a tackle here, given Ike Ekwonu's patella injury.
Yeah.
I think that could be a really fascinating. Again, this could be where Monroe Freeling starts to come up a lot more. I'm not going to take Monroe Freeling here. I am going to go Caleb Banks, the defensive tackle from Florida. You just need some more production from that 5-tech spot. If you're going to have Derek Brown play nose, you need some production from the guys outside of him. And he has some of the heaviest hands in this draft class. Watching him at the Senior Bowl just discard blockers, it was like he was going through bags almost. It was so impressive. I think the injuries sort of scare me a little bit, but they don't make a lot of defensive tackles the way his build, where he's just like 6'6", 330, and he is very well built. I would take him and just immediately try and just boost that defense a little bit more.
Caleb Banks is going to be one of the guys in this class that I think every year there's like a handful of guys that if I were GM, I would just say someone else can draft him. Where he's going to get drafted, I don't think I'd want to pull the trigger just because, one, the injury history, he's played like under 1,000 snaps in 5 years, and 2, 6'6" defensive tackles are just, it's tough to be consistent at that size. And I think even in the one-on-ones at the Senior Bowl, I saw when he didn't win basically on contact. He does, his reps when he wins on contact are just freaky. He has crazy pop behind him. But when he didn't win on contact, he doesn't really have answers to win late in reps and to, a lot of times when he got to the side of offensive linemen, you saw a little stiffness to his frame and ability to dip and get around the edge of offensive linemen. So he'll just be kind of like a boomer bust defensive tackle to me. And just one of those guys where, I'm not saying he's going to be a terrible player, but just someone else can draft him. Someone else can take that risk. Probably not going to be worth it for me, in my opinion. Cowboys at 20. Oh, man. So the way this board's shaken out right now, obviously the Cowboys need everywhere defensively. You would love to get Kenneth Murray off the football field. You'd love to get more edge help. I think that's where I'm going to go. I think I'll go TJ Parker at this point.
Ooh.
I think he's just solid. I thought he was solid at the Senior Bowl. I think he's at minimum, another guy who raises the floor of your run defense. And I don't think he's ever going to be a special pass rusher, but I think he can be just a consistent every down defensive end. And again, your D-line was so bad last year. Obviously, you just took Clemson's D-line with Peter Woods and TJ Parker now. Maybe not the best after the seasons both of them had, but I'll still buy into, again, freshman and sophomore production from both. So we'll see. TJ Parker.
I think Parker is the guy where I'm sort of like, I'm going to let somebody else draft him in round
that's fair.
this year. I just think I have a lot of questions when it comes to pass rush playing, and I just think that he's sort of okay at everything. He's not especially a special athlete or a special mover. I think he's got the long arm, which I think really helps, but then just building counters off of that. I think he had a good week at the Senior Bowl showing some of the counters that he has developed off of that, but I just think that he's sort of just okay to me. I don't think he's going to ever be fantastic. And who knows what happens when we get to the NFL level. But I do just think he probably maxes out as just an okay, second defensive end.
Yeah, I don't too much disagree about his ceiling. I don't think he's ever going to be a Pro Bowl or All Pro, but I think he'll be solid.
All right. Pittsburgh Steelers here. I'm going to let it be known I'm not drafting Ty Simpson here. So Steelers fans, you can rejoice for now. I actually think I'm going to go with Denzel Boston here. And I was going back and forth between Denzel Boston and Casey Concepcion. And the reason I'm going Boston over Concepcion is, I do think Concepcion is one of the best separators in this draft class, if not the best separator in this draft class. I worry so much about the drops. Like if he just didn't drop all the passes that he did, I would have so much more confidence in him. But I do think Boston is he's a little bit shiftier than he's given credit for. Although I don't think that he's like going to be wow anybody after the catch, but I think he has the ability to sink his hips. I think he has the ability to win on over routes, dig routes, crossers. I think that's going to be really helpful in that offense. And you sort of think about what Mike McCarthy had in Michael Gallup and CeeDee Lamb when the offense was working at its best in Dallas. I'm not saying that these guys are going to be the same thing, but having DK Metcalf just work the Michael Gallup vertical plane and allowing Denzel Boston to work sort of underneath, middle of the field, that in-between area, I think that'll be really helpful.
I would probably lean Concepcion for them just because I want open guys, right? Like I don't think Boston's quite as easy a separator, but I don't disagree that he would help them a lot too. Like it's not as if Boston wouldn't be a big value add, and especially given how often just Rodgers wanted to throw back shoulders and goes last year. It's like that's what Boston can do in his sleep. All right, Chargers. Oh, I go back and forth on this because I would love to draft Caden Proctor and put him on this offensive line if Greg Roman was still the offense coordinator. I don't know what they're going to do with Mike McDaniel because his offense is decidedly different, right? And that's not Caden Proctor's fit. I also would love to add Kenyon Sadiq because, as I've said a bunch, Kenyon Sadiq is the Mike McDaniel tight end. Like he is perfect for that offense. So wherever he went, that's where Kenyon Sadiq has to go. But they kind of have a Rondé Gatson who's not bad in that. And I don't know how much two tight end they're really going to use. So, I have a debate on my hands here with that. Let's just go Kenyon Sadiq. I'm just going to do it. Ooh. I'm not going to complain about two tight ends, especially two guys that can really move like Gadsden and Sadiq. I think he is the Mike McDaniel tight end. So wherever he went, I had to put him there.
Just get fast. And I think Kenyon Sadiq has the ability to be sort of this versatile chess piece for the Chargers offense. I think chess piece gets used a lot when we talk about tight ends, but I do think he has the ability to be he can be an F tight end, a move tight end, which again, you sort of create a weird dynamic between him and Rondé Gadsden. But I think with the way Mike McDaniel runs his offense, I think Sadiq would be a really nice, really big help for this offense, honestly, just in giving Justin Herbert more targets. Just give him anybody who can catch the ball or create separation.
All right, let's take a quick break. After that, we're going to get to picks 23 through 32.
Critics agree Landman is a hit.
We roll the dice one last time.
Men die. Oil companies don't.
On the clock here with the Philadelphia Eagles, 23rd overall pick. I think they're going to start trying to prepare for life after Lane Johnson. I feel like there have been some rumblings that, you need to start prepping for that. So where do we go here? I am going with Max Iheanacho.
Yes.
From Arizona State, offensive tackle. One, I just think it's the cleanest fit. You don't have to move him from left to right or right to left. I think it just makes sense. I do think it might be a little bit rich for him right now, but I do think the Eagles operate by their own world when it comes to drafting. Mm-hmm. And if Jeff Stoutland likes a guy, they're going to go get him. And I think Iheanacho is probably the guy that I'm most fascinated by outside of Monroe Freeling. I think former soccer player that shows up in his movement skills. And I just think you give him that time behind Lane Johnson to sort of just grow a little bit more. I think you could have something really fun on your hands.
Yeah, I love Iheanacho. I thought he was inconsistent at the Senior Bowl. Didn't have the best week, but I also think you'd be lying if you watched tape and thought he was going to go there and be a stud, right? He is a project. We know what he is. You're not going to fix that stuff overnight, but I love the career trajectory so far to date. Love the tools. And I would love where he's ending up here in terms of Philadelphia, in terms of a place to develop him. So, yeah, let's get it done. All right. Browns on the clock at 24. We're taking Ty Simpson. Quarterback, Alabama's coming off the board. We're just taking a shot. We're taking a shot at figuring it out at the most valuable position. And yes, you drafted 2 guys last year, but I think the fact that you drafted 2 guys last year was indicative of how you felt about it, and that Andrew Berry would want to keep taking shots. And if I'm a GM and I'm sitting here and pretty much every guy I'm looking at is a second-round grade for me at this point, or like a second-round value in most drafts, why not take a shot at the quarterback position? So give me Ty Simpson. I think we'll just see how it happens. We'll see what happens.
This would be incredibly funny. I do like it, and I think it sort of fits what Todd Monken did at Georgia with his offense with Stetson Bennett. And I'm not saying Ty Simpson is Stetson Bennett, not at all. But I just think the lack of dynamic ability as a runner is going to be a lot different than what he had with Lamar Jackson. But Ty Simpson is a confident passer over the middle of the field. I think he's shown a lot of toughness playing through all those injuries. Now, all the injuries do concern me, but I do think you just have the chance to get at least a starting caliber quarterback.
Yep.
This one I've already had set in stone. Caden McDonald, welcome to the Chicago Bears. They just need help on the defensive interior. He is a house of a run defender. And especially after Amari Washington decided to return to school, I think he is going to go in the first round. McDonald's going to go in the first round. I think just there's something that has to be unlocked when it comes to pass rush. But when you think about guys like Tyleik Williams, who went in the first round last year, they immediately boost your run defense. And you got to either choose to boost your run or pass defense right now if you're Chicago, and McDonald gives you a chance to just boost the run game immediately.
He's so good against the run, man. I mean, he's one of the best just like pure run defending DTs I've seen in college. And I don't see that changing in the NFL, truthfully. It just, guy's got the body type to do it. Buffalo Bills, another very easy one. I was hoping he would make it here, and he did. It's Casey Concepcion, the Texas A&M wide receiver. Everything that Keon Coleman is not, Casey Concepcion is. We're not going to be lambasting Casey Concepcion in any press conference 2 years from now because the GM and the head coach are on different pages. This guy you're on the same page on. It's very easy. He is what they're missing in that receiving core.
I think Concepcion, I love his ability to separate and the juice that he immediately will bring. And he has grown a lot in his time from NC State to Texas A&M, where they actually let him run routes with the Aggies. Again, very worried about the drops, but if you just get a guy who can create separation, like Josh Allen just needs somebody who's going to be open. And I think that with the way that that receiving core is built, where you have a bunch of guys that are sort of like gimmicky, I'm not going to say Khalil Shakir is a gimmick receiver, but in their playoff game against the Jaguars, he had 12 catches for 82 yards. Like, he's not running routes downfield, and neither are Curtis Samuel or any of the other smaller receivers on that team. I think Concepcion can give them such, like, we're going to actually run routes downfield to create separation. This is fascinating with the Niners here at 27. I'm really going between 2 guys, and it just really is based on fit and what you want to do. I'm going to go Caleb Lomu here. Tackle from Utah. I think he's probably a better fit for the wide zone offense. And the reason I'm going with the tackle here is because Trent Williams is 38 years old. You might not have him for much longer. Colton McKivitz is not good. You also might not have him. You also should not want him for much longer. I think Lomu still has a wide range of outcomes. He's also another young player entering this draft, but the athleticism, the foot speed, I think that's going to really stand out in this offense.
I agree. He's my next best tackle on the board. I think I just feel confident he'll be at least a solid pass protector at the next level. All right, Houston Texans at 28. Man, on one hand, I would love to go Caden Proctor and put him at guard. On the other hand, I just don't see him as being an offensive tackle at the NFL level, whereas Monroe Freeling, I think, can. That, to me, is quite easily the biggest need in Houston. I think they can cobble it together at guard. They don't have a tackle. I do not trust what I've seen from Blake Fisher. Give me Monroe Freeling from Georgia.
I actually think Monroe Freely might go a lot higher when we get to draft season. I think just the athleticism, he's huge. Monroe Freeland's a massive tackle, but he doesn't play like a massive tackle. He has he has the foot speed to really win, but I do think he wins a lot more when it comes to duo, getting upfield, and that athleticism is going to really stand out in the Texans offense. You can move Ariante Ursary to right tackle and just play your best five, honestly, because the Texans just need to play their best five at this point. Oh, man. So the Rams kind of get screwed here with Lomu and Freeling going back-to-back before they can get to them. I think they would have loved that. And now you're sort of wondering who you are going to pick here. You already picked Sonny Styles. And you're already cornering the market on freak athletes. Give me Emmanuel McNeil Warren.
Yes.
Just get
coming off the board soon.
Athletes. I love watching Emmanuel McNeil Warren. I think you can play him at deep safety. You can play him at nickel, but he is such a havoc raiser at the position, and I think he gives them just some needed juice at that second and third level of their defense. Some athleticism. He can play downfield. Although I do like him better coming off the roof as a safety instead of playing deep. I do think that he just fits what they want to do defensively, especially what Chris Shula wants to do. And again, just get big and athletic in that secondary.
Love Emmanuel McNeil Warren. I would take that guy in the first round all day. In this class, especially. All right. Broncos 30. I'm going Omar Cooper Jr., the Indiana wide receiver. Maybe it's early. I think he's perfect for the Broncos offense. His yak ability, his hands. I mean, pairing him with Bo Nix, he is the underneath sort of wide receiver that can continually churn those short, quick passes to bigger gains. Just give me Omar Cooper Jr. here for the Broncos.
This is fun. I hadn't thought of Omar Cooper Jr. as a first rounder. I've been sort of like wish casting the Panthers drafting him in the second round. Mm-hmm. But the juice he brings, especially after the catch, that's something that Sean Payton really needs in that offense. And I think that's something they were hoping to get from Marvin Mims, but he hasn't really been that consistently. But I think Omar Cooper Jr. wins after the catch. I think he's shown they can go up and get the ball. I think he's shown that he can play a lot bigger than his frame. So I actually really like that pick. 31, New England Patriots. I am very curious what they do here because there are a lot of options. You know, K'Lavon Chaisson is going to be a free agent. You might need some more athleticism on that defensive side of the ball, especially in the defensive front. Mike Vrabel's never been known to abide by like positional standards. And I also think he likes guys that have a little bit of grit. I'm not going to go with Cassius Howell here. I'm actually going to Oklahoma edge R. Mason Thomas.
Oh.
Watching R. Mason Thomas, I really like what he does as a player. And I get it with the injury stuff, especially as an older prospect. He's a senior, didn't play at the Senior Bowl. He was still nursing an injury, but I think the effort he gives as a run defender combined with the burst and actual bend he has as a pass rusher, I think Mike Vrabel's going to love that. And I think he's going to love the effort that he brings, the speed that he brings on the edge. I think they just need to turn up their edge pass rush a little bit more and get a guy who can win in one-on-one scenarios or sort of take attention off of Christian Barmore, Milton Williams. And I'm a big fan of R. Mason Thomas. So I have him going here 31.
R. Mason in the first round. Have not seen it yet. How tall is he? He's like 6 foot on the dot, something like that. He is not big, but I completely agree with the bend aspect. And it shows up all the time with seeing him. He can just sneak under guys. I mean, he has that ability to get around and create those, especially when we have interior pass rush. We have guys who are going to flee quarterbacks out of pockets. Get the guy who gets around the top and consistently clean those up. All right. Pick 32, Seattle Seahawks. We're not making any predictions here. This is just what PFF mock draft simulator has. I'm going to keep Mesidor. Koye Mafe is impending free agent. Obviously, in Mike McDonald's defense, you just want hockey lines, right? You need guy after guy after guy along that defensive line. Akeem Mesidor his tape is better than the 32nd overall pick this past year. We know why he's falling here. He's going to be 25 years old as a rookie. A lot of injuries on his record at this point. But the Seahawks can kind of make some short-term moves. They can be like, hey, we just get a guy who I know is good. You know Akeem Mesidor is good. He was awesome on tape this past year. Not prototypical edge size, was kind of actually started his career as a nose tackle at West Virginia, but the guy gets after it. Awesome pass rushing option that can get you back to this point next year.
He plays with such a hot motor. And I think we sort of bring it up when like their guys are gritty, like lunch pail guys. Akeem Mesidor is your gritty guy in this draft class. He is such a he's never gonna give up on a play. I do think sometimes he'll run himself out of run plays, which gives me a little bit of pause, but he's such a quality pass rusher where you can just have him rotate. And like what Seattle likes to do when they rotate their defensive linemen in, maybe you don't have to play him on early downs because you have Tank Lawrence. You can just have him be a designated pass rusher. So I like the pick here for Mesidor. I was actually curious if you go linebacker here. I think guys like Josiah Trotter, CJ Allen, but I like the idea of the Mesidor pick.
So I think both of us so we only went 2 linebackers. I mean, truthfully, 1 linebacker, considering Arvell Reese. I think we both think is going to be a pass rusher for Washington there. 1 linebacker in the first round, despite it being a crazy good linebacker class. But that's kind of why we're not drafting him in the first round, at least for me, because, could have drafted CJ Allen here, could have drafted Josiah Trotter, Anthony Hill Jr. If those guys go first round, I'm not going to bat too much of an eye. They're great prospects. It's just because there's so many of them, you feel comfortable you're going to get one on day 2, right? You feel comfortable that wait until the second round, you're probably going to get one of those guys.
I also wouldn't be surprised. Like at 15 with Keldrick Falk, I did consider Josiah Trotter there because I do think the Bucs would really love a guy like Trotter in the middle of that defense, especially with Levante David getting older. But like you said, this linebacker class is so good and so deep where guys like Trotter, CJ Allen could fall into early day 2. And those will be the opportunities where you can pick a guy that's very similar to a guy like Carson Schlesinger, who was in day 2 and ended up potentially being defensive rookie of the year.
We'll definitely see how the NFL feels about, I think, safeties and linebackers in this year's class. Will be interesting to track both of those classes. So there you have it. There's our first round mock. We're going to be doing a few over the course of the next few weeks. On Thursday, we'll be wrapping up the coaching searches, giving grades to all the coaches. We'll be giving our full Super Bowl preview. Until then, thanks so much for tuning in. Keep pushing.